Sheridan live. It is Tuesday, March 8th. Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live. It's myself Tuesday. There. It is Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. Hope everybody's having a lovely, lovely day. A lot going on. I've actually been working on an investigative story all day behind the scenes. So looking forward to continuing to work on this investigative piece, which I think is a doozy. Joining me is my comrade, Steve Grumbine. Steve, where is your Bolshevik hat?
You know what? I decided to go with Meshuggah, which is close to Bolshevik, right? I mean, they kind of sound the same.
Meshuggah?
I got Meshuggah.
My dearly departed grandma used to call me a Meshuggah. So
it's one of the best bands in the world, man. Get with the program, Jordan.
There you go. And thank you, by the way, for filling in for me while I was on a short vacation. The audience loved it. And I will say we're still ironing out the details, but we will be having Steve doing a weekly show coming up soon right here on Status Coup. So Steve getting his own weekly show. So stay tuned for that. It will be MMT, but a whole lot of other things too. So I'm excited that you'll be joining on for your own weekly show soon to kind of expand the coup a little bit with a real progressives take. So looking forward to that. We got a lot to discuss. Smash that like button. Share this live stream so more people can see it. We didn't fit it in the headline, but later on we're going to have a Buffalo Starbucks worker. Starbucks, after Buffalo workers won a historic first union of Starbucks workers, Starbucks is now firing those union leaders, shockingly. So we're going to have a Buffalo Starbucks worker a little bit later to talk about what's going on. And tomorrow actually is the vote for additional Starbucks stores in Buffalo, whether they're going to get a union or not. But Steve, let's start. Obviously, Russia-Ukraine war is continuing. I always like to put the disclaimer that I'm a domestic guy. I'm not a foreign policy guy, but, you know, I do my research and I think I know slightly what's going on. But this is really, really something. You and I already talked many times that housing is going up, prices, rental units are going up. Obviously, we've talked about grocery prices have been going up. I mean, prices have been going up, inflation, period. A lot of that due to price gouging rather than these companies actually having to increase prices. But today, as Biden announced, we are banning imports, Russian oil imports, which sounds like he might have been pushed to it by Congress. Congress was going to do it, and he just did it because they would have a veto-proof majority if he banned it. We're seeing pain at the pump, like serious pain all over the country. Colin, if you could show some of the images, that's in California, almost $7. Oh, no, I think that was Hawaii, the first one, almost $7. California, you got, what was that, almost $6 a gallon. Other parts, $5.29, $5.24. On the East Coast, where both you and I live, we're seeing over $4 a gallon. And this is supposedly, I don't know, I was freezing my ass off at the Dakota Access Pipeline for on and off for 6 months, being told this is for energy independence. We know that Line 3, we were told this is for energy independence. Keystone, which thankfully has not happened, but all these pipelines, we've been fed. And the true victims, indigenous people, Black and brown people that they put these pipelines through, poor communities, been told, well, we need to do this fracking. We need to drill, baby, drill. We need to do all this because this makes America energy independent. Well, Colin, if we could put up, and Steve sent this to me earlier, let's see how energy independent America is. Colin, let's look at our oil sources and the countries we get our oil from. This was about 5 days ago. So you have... here we go. So you got U.S. imports of crude oil. Canada, 61%. Mexico, 10%. Saudi Arabia, 6%. Russia, 3%. Colombia, 3%. Iraq, 2%. Other, 13%. So clearly fracking the hell out of the nation and jeopardizing waterways, Native American burial grounds, and animal life, air pollution, the list and list. Clearly, that was so if war breaks out, we aren't suffering at the pump. I give you the floor.
So I think the most important thing to realize here is the United States does not have an energy policy. The energy policy is an ideological policy based on free markets. So while the U.S. has a strategic reserve, a buffer stock, if you will, of oil that they occasionally release to buffer or offset shocks to the global supply chains, the fact is the United States government leaves this to the private sector, to free enterprise. And so all the different fuel companies throughout the U.S., they have their own buying arrangements. Sure, the U.S. might create open markets and clear ways to allow these companies to do business, but the United States itself doesn't tell them, hey, you have to import or export so much oil. They allow them to do whatever business model they do. And so right now we have opened up a lot of tribal lands like you have with the No DAPL thing. The Dakota Access Pipeline still should ring in all of our heads. And you see the Keystone fight that we went through, as Jordan pointed out. The fact of the matter is that there is no compelling anything to say that oil has to stay in the United States. And more importantly, it didn't slow the drilling down. We're still drill, baby, drill. The issue is that our federal government, which has supreme power over subsidizing, over setting the prices for these things all the way across, has an ideological bend to not do that. And so what you're seeing right now is the direct effect of laissez-faire, libertarian-minded. And for all you people that love libertarians, welcome to your hellscape. This is it. This is the outcome of your lack of collective welfare, lack of collective well-being. This is your energy policy. Thank you, libertarians. And Joe Biden, if you go back to 1989, I sent you this, Jordan. I don't know if you have a chance to look at it yet.
We have it.
Wait till you see this.
I was walking my dog when you sent it to me. We have it.
1989, Joe Biden comes out and says, the only thing that could really destabilize the region is for NATO to creep in and do something with Ukraine. It says it in 1989. Right?
Let's play that.
Go ahead. Listen to Joe.
One place where the greatest consternation would be caused in the short term for admission, having nothing to do with the merit and preparedness of the country to come in, would be to admit the Baltic states now in terms of NATO-Russian, U.S.-Russian relations. And if there was ever anything that was going to tip the balance, were it to be tipped in terms of a vigorous and hostile reaction, I don't mean military, in Russia, it would be that. So the way I look at the calculus here is...
Isn't it? Wow, that was a long time ago when he could speak.
He knew it. He's known it forever, man. This guy he may be Sleepy Joe, but that's a facade. He already knows what he's doing. And, I got to be fair to all of us here. We're kind of on the ass end of this. We don't get a lot of say-so. And most people are so propagandized that all they can do is shout and scream and point like you did to the pictures of the prices. That's the world that we know. That's the real, where the rubber meets the road kind of story, is the price of fuel. But the reality is that ideologically speaking, our government is 100% a libertarian-minded, dog eat dog, makers and takers, free markets win. And they're so into this thing, they don't care who it hurts. And so now you're watching them scramble around because there is being pressure put on them to do something. But it turns out the single greatest excuse not to go to war is to have a honest to God energy policy with renewables at the center of it, where we're not dependent on anyone for fuel. We're not dependent on any of this stuff. And there's really no excuse for it. We have all the technology in the world to do it. The money, as we know, is not an issue, should not be an issue. We create the money every time we spend it. Inflation has absolutely nothing to do with spending money into the economy. It has everything to do with shortages and gouging. And so with that in mind, this energy policy that we should have and don't have is really the story of the day. It should be the story of the day, because while we're talking about this, we just watched, I think we all at least had a chance to hear about the movie Don't Look Up. And right here, right now, we all know that we have an existential climate crisis going on even now, even though it may not feel like it, even though it may be nice outside and you have a pretty day, sun's out. The fact is that we still are in an existential climate crisis right here, right now. And the answer to this has become drill, baby, drill. And so all the rest of the important things that need to happen to decarb the environment is literally on hold. It's literally the last thing anyone's going to talk about is stopping drilling. And I can imagine, if I was to role play out US policy domestically here, I can imagine suddenly another pipeline coming through another place because, hey, after all, you saw what just happened with Russia. We can't have that again. And you want to talk about turning public ire onto activists defending water. I could see that happening very easily, very quickly with the propaganda machine as strong as it is.
But
So-
again, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like the jig is up, but people don't, the masses don't get the jig is up. Literally, we have been fed. Well, you know what? Here's a good setup. Let's play Barack Obama's, President Obama's bragging a couple of years ago.
I was extraordinarily proud of the Paris Accords because, look, I know, I know we're an oil country. And we need American energy, and by the way, American energy production. You wouldn't always know it, but it went up every year I was president. And that whole suddenly America's like the biggest oil producer and the biggest that was me, people. I just want you to so. It's a little like, sometimes you go to Wall Street and folks will be grumbling about anti-business. I said, have you checked where your stocks were when I came in office and where they are now? What are you talking? What are you complaining about? Just say thank you, please.
Just say thank you, please. Steve, you have that. He's bragging. And by the way, we got 300 people watching. Smash that like button. Share this live stream. Let's get it out to more people. This is a really important topic. And again, we're going to be interviewing a Buffalo Starbucks worker a little bit later about Starbucks now firing the organizers who won the first ever Starbucks union here in America. So we have that coming up later. But he's bragging about this. I mean, look, the U.S. will be a net oil importer in 2022. This is the article I think you sent me. The U.S. will be a net oil importer in 2022. So he's bragging about that under him, we are now one of the biggest, or if the biggest, oil producers. Clearly, it's going outside the country because we are a net importer. So it's all a lie. And all these people that are now, I mean, these poor people in Hawaii that are $7 a gallon. Who the hell could afford that? $6 a gallon in California. On the East Coast, it's well over $4 now. Most working people have to drive to work. Most working people don't live 5 minutes from work. So when you couple that with, as we've talked about, Colin, if you have that Guardian article, renters across the U.S. face sharp increases, averaging up to 40% in some cities. This is from February. So it's all been a lie. All these pipelines were not necessary, or let me rephrase. These pipelines were not used so that we were not at the mercy of Russia or Saudi Arabia or Colombia or Canada. It was all used to enrich the United Corporations of America. Let me show the flag. It was all used to enrich the United Corporations of America, i.e. the United States of Oil, and the Democrats' donors and the Republicans' donors. And by the way, as people didn't realize, Steve, do you know who one of the biggest shareholders of the Dakota Access Pipeline was?
Barack Obama?
Warren
Joe
Buffett.
Biden?
Warren
Warren
Buffett.
Buffett.
Warren Buffett was the majority shareholder in one of the companies that owned it. So I'm just trying to get across to people. Of course, the Native Americans are the main victims in this. Black and brown people that we ram a lot of these pipelines through. Frankly, some poor white areas now that they're putting these pipelines through. None of it is lowering your gas prices, folks. None of it. If anything, it's making you more vulnerable because it's all going to other countries and they've been lying to you. And you don't hear this on CNN or MSNBC. You're not going to hear, well, wait a minute. I thought we were mother frackers so that this wasn't going to happen. Your thoughts?
So remember when we talk about healthcare and we say you have access to healthcare, right? Well, gas companies, fuel companies, they have access to lands. They have access to licenses to drill, but there is no like framework for forcing a certain amount of it in the United States or price controls or anything like that. There's no strings attached, baby, other than just drill, baby, drill. And these businesses get to make business decisions in their own interest, not in the country's interest. So just like we do when we go across the world clearing markets using the IMF to create business-friendly zones, things like that, in the United States, the government simply serves as a tool of capital to create business-friendly zones for oil companies. Oil lobby has done its job, and they are winning hand over fist. We aren't. We're losing. But when it comes to, air conditioners that run off of fuel, when it comes to cars that run off of fuel, when it comes to lubricants, when it comes to everything, plastics, you name it, everything is going to go up because of the gouging that takes place. Because when you have one chemical, one product of any variety that's price is going up and it is ubiquitously used throughout every facet of your society, you are going to see inflation, and it's going to happen in so many different facets of our economy. It's going to be very, very challenging to bring it back down without a fundamental shift in ideological perspectives to protection, to actually encumbering spending bills to say you must do this to receive this money, you must do that to receive this license to drill. And quite frankly, I think that what we're watching right now is laughable. It is laughable because ultimately they don't want to get rid of oil. They want oil to stay in place. All this concept of, renewable energy, it's stuff you watch in a children's book. It reading a children's book, watching a cartoon somewhere. It's not happening in real life. In real life, they're paying lip service to that. In real life, being able to have markets freed up, cleared, etc., is what this is all about. I don't know where it leaves us at the end, other than one of those Elysium type things where the rich are up in a spaceship in the air and we're down here gagging on chokeable, barely call it oxygen. So to me, at the end of the day, watching this happen is just a precursor to bigger and worse things. If we don't shift to renewable energies, you're going to always see war. You're going to always see these kinds of scenarios play out. And as long as our government behaves as a libertarian bastion of, neoliberalism, we are going to be fucked 6 ways to Sunday. And I'm telling you right now, you should realize this, because this is what liberalization of markets is. This is what happens when you don't have an actual policy with enforcement tools that have teeth. This is what happens when you go with the individualist profit motive versus the collective well-being. And folks, I'm telling you right now, you may not like your government, but it's not government that is the problem. It's the people in government. It's the people that have captured government that is the problem. We need a government that functionally understands what it means to place the public purpose and the people before profit. Jill Stein said it years ago. This is something that the left should all be able to rally around. There is absolutely no excuse for anyone to be a free marketeer at this point. You should be able to see it. It's like so empirical right in front of your face, that when you have free markets and you have no kinds of strings attached and they can just run roughshod, they will do it every single time. They will only do the right thing when there is no other alternative but to do the right thing, but they can't do the wrong thing anymore. And that's the only time they do it. It's not because of anything else. Unless they can turn a profit doing the right thing, then they'll probably find a way to do it. But they aren't doing that. And Jordan, I can tell you right now, until we get to a point where the people out there realize that free markets are not our friend, no matter how much they talk about, how much they lionize it, how much they glorify free markets are not our friend. And we should know that by now.
And by the way, the ironic thing, not that you and I are, Cold War historians here, but America, in basically helping to precipitate the fall of the Soviet Union, we injected then Russia with free market capitalism. America very, very, very aggressively injected Russia with neoliberalism, austerity, capitalism, the free market, rather than their previous system. And I mean, Russia doesn't really have a vibrant middle class either, or a very struggling middle class. It has oligarchs and the rest of them. So it just seems like the things you're talking about, we helped create that in Russia too.
Yep. Well, you see what's happening. You see us doing it in even the UK, where they had robust social spending. They had a national health service. They had all these things. The United States comes and says, hey, let us help you see how you can privatize this and turn a buck for your businesses. And so you see them destroying and dismantling the NHS. You see that same exact story happening in Australia. You see it around the world. Every time the IMF, and I've talked about this at length, but I'm going to keep talking about it until it sticks and becomes part of the story that we repeat. The IMF, everywhere else, the global south, you must capitulate to free market capitalism. You must become a business-friendly entity. You must not protect your own profits. You must not protect your own resources. You must wide open your entire society for business to come in and extract. That is the IMF model, and is the only way you can get IMF loans. And when you are hurting and you're in private debt or foreign debt, as it were, with countries, they put these situations together where you have no choice but to say, okay. And ultimately, the United States is the hand behind the IMF. It's the hand behind the World Trade Organization, and is ultimately the chief exporter of neoliberalism. And that's what you're seeing right now. You are seeing the effects of extreme privatization destroying the planet and destroying our very lives. That's my take, Jordan. I hope it sticks, because I hope people start remembering free markets are not our friend.
Absolutely. And I wanted to also play this clip because I knew you would have a reaction to it. I interviewed Nick Estes. He's an indigenous author, wrote a great book about Standing Rock and writes for The Guardian. I spoke with him a little bit about what we're talking about. I want to play this clip because I think you'll have a reaction to it.
With the development of domestic energy in terms of oil and gas, the United States doesn't play it plays a somewhat of a role in setting the prices of oil and gas, but it's not the sole, it's not unilaterally setting prices, and that it's, other oil producing nations that are setting these prices. So the United States may be able to, produce X amount of millions of barrels of oil per day, but that's not going to make oil prices drop. And in fact, when these Republicans were pushing opening up, federal lands for drilling, they have so many federal leases that that are already ready to be, drilled on a lot of these lands. There's also state leases as well that they're not exploiting. And so it begs the question of, like, where's this leading us onto, other than a windfall profits for the fossil fuel industry, because they're the real big winners here at the end of the day. And when we talk about energy independence, we also have to question why is it that this war is becoming both a kind of boondoggle for the oil and gas industry, as well as this push for renewable technology, when we should not be using wars and crises and the creation of, I think the UN estimate today was 2 million refugees coming out of Ukraine as an opportunity to push our profit-driven agendas, whether it's for green renewable transition or the oil and gas industry. And what we're seeing now is, just days before Russia invaded Ukraine, Biden was giving a speech in which he was positioning, the development of what he called critical minerals in the United States as a key strategic position and national security interests for the United States against Chinese interests, because the vast majority of green renewable technologies and so-called critical minerals are coming from China.
I know you have thoughts on China. And by the way, that whole interview will air tomorrow. Nick is for renewables. So he's definitely not against it. But he was making the point, this war should not be the opportunity for fossil fuel companies or renewables.
Yeah, you know what? It sometimes it takes a really bad thing to make people move. Unfortunately, I'll just say that. But the other thing, and this is a fundamental thing, Jordan, the most fundamental aspect of this is understanding how economics works here and what the power of not just our federal government, but look at China, China's overall central government, right? China does not have the volatility that we have in this country. We have extreme volatility in this country because extreme volatility creates investment opportunities. We're about investment. We're a finance capital country. We don't produce anything anymore. We invest. So the more opportunities for these extreme spikes where people can quickly invest and then quickly get out and create all these paper millionaires, this right here is the strategy. We have become a money market, money manager capitalist country where corporations are no longer actually producing things, but they're really a portfolio of stocks that they manage. And so when you look at places like China and you look at some of these other countries, they have policies in place to direct their spending, to direct the function of their society, whereas we allow corporations to choose what we do, what we like, what fashion is in, etc. We don't have the same kind of appetite, if you will, for price controls and government intervention. And so we have ridiculed any form of government. We want a government so small that it can be squashed, that it can be choked by a corporation. And this right here is an ideological proclivity of the libertarian mind, which is what the United States is all about. And it is, quite frankly, always been about since the dawn of the colonial period, where we came and invaded this once proud nation of indigenous folks. We have absolutely turned this place into a libertarian hellscape. And we always point to the people that won in these gambles, but we never really examine the people that lost. They always end up voiceless, faceless, just, ne'er-do-goods. But the reality is this entire system is built to crush losers and absolutely lavishly reward quote unquote winners. And you see the difference between a country like China, whether you like China or not, whether China's perfect or not, whether they have human rights violations or not, whether that's extreme utopia that you would desire is irrelevant. The point is, you can see the dichotomy between no government control or controls only for superficial shit versus a government that is putting forward a coherent policy like one road, one belt. These are things that take planning, they take thought, they take actual commitment to do. The United States, if the corporations can't make money on it, they're not going to do it. That's the difference between the two. What kind of country do you want to live in? I know we always talk about socialist this and socialist that. The reality is that the country itself has to have a direction. And right now, the direction of our country, they've kept us dumb, they've kept us broke. They've kept us completely out of the ability to make change through the normal processes that we expect, like voting. So what do we end up with? We end up with what we've got right now, which is a country that is scrambling around trying to figure out what to do now that we've put our own foot in our mouth by putting sanctions on Russia, which may or may not be the right thing to do. I'm not going to get into that at the moment. I am going to say, though, that if you're going to do something like that, you damn better sure have a better plan up your sleeve to make sure that your country doesn't suffer for your decisions. Right. And I see no real value here, ultimately, in us as a country trying to scramble around about fossil fuels when we have known since, the 70s that we've needed to get away. Since OPEC crisis in the 70s, we've known we needed to get away from this. And here we are. We're allowing it to happen. But it doesn't have to happen. President Biden has a lot of executive authority to do a lot of executive things. The sanctions he's put on Russia are not required to go through Congress. He could actually put that as part of his executive order to just put a sanction on Russia to block oil from coming into the United States. So the president has a lot of power to do a lot of things. He's not using that power. He's not using it for student debt. He's not using it for Medicare for all. And he's certainly not using it to ensure that we have gas or fuel in this country at a price that we can afford. We should have been ahead of the game here, folks. We should have been completely out of this fossil fuel business a long time ago. And this is the price we pay for staying stuck.
That's a great segue. And I hate to talk politics because there's a lot of suffering right now in Ukraine. And we shouldn't ignore also, I'll be attacked as a Russian stooge. There's suffering in Russia too. They're not getting killed. So obviously they're Ukrainians.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Jordan. I'm going to disagree with you there. Sanctions are murder. People die from sanctions. People die. It's not always the people in the middle. It's always at the bottom. The bottom just gets crushed. So don't ever think.
I agree. I was referring to right now. People in Ukraine.
Fair enough.
You're absolutely right. I was talking about, people in Russia right now. There's a growing protest movement. They are being threatened with, major jail time, heavy fines. People are losing access to their livelihood. Streamers, things like that, getting cut off by Twitch and elsewhere. You have people losing access to banking. People are going to be feeling it in Russia too. So we have to separate Putin from the Russian citizens, just like any other country. But I wanted to bring up here all the things you were saying that Biden has the power to do. Well, it seems to me, I was going through it yesterday. His poll numbers are up right now, i.e. wag the dog. And his poll numbers are up since the State of the Union. I don't really think it has anything to do with his State of the Union speech, many parts which were incoherent and all bullshit and lies, and just much like the rest of the Democratic Party, telling you what we want to do, but then making excuses not to do it. He's up overall. His approval rating jumped up 8 points to 47%. Ukraine handling up 18 points to 52%. Coronavirus pandemic handling is now 55%, up 8 points. Hate to tell you guys, by the way, it's not getting any media coverage, but this sub-Omicron variant is starting to spread. Cases are cases are going significantly up in the UK, and hospitalizations are up in the UK. And we're starting to see cases slowly go up here. Sorry to the COVID denialists, but I wanted to sprinkle that in. But I bring up these poll numbers for Biden. War is a good thing for presidents. We saw what happened with Bush after 9/11. His poll numbers went up when we first went to Iraq. Biden's poll numbers are going up. I said, and I think you would agree, yeah, it was kind of like a wink, wink, like the media and Biden were saying, oh, no, we want to do everything we can to avoid Russia invading Ukraine. But they kept beating the drum for Russia to invade Ukraine. So I wanted to ask you, it seems to me, Biden has zero impetus, and the Democrats have zero impetus to do anything economically for people, fight for Build Back Better, do anything on healthcare, do anything, period, that will actually help working people, because they're just going to continue to let this play out and see his poll numbers rise.
Yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, it makes you wonder, if there's a better way. I mean, being an American is kind of an embarrassment. I mean, I remember growing up and
Steve, wait, be careful. YouTube might hear that. YouTube,
I thought I did something wrong.
YouTube owned by Google might hear you saying it's kind of an embarrassment to be an American and slap the Russian state whatever on us. So to be clear, we two Americans are saying it's an embarrassment to be an American. We were not told by a foreign government to say that to you.
That's true.
That's
true. Very good. Yes. But I remember growing up, my first bicycle as a kid was a 1976 bicentennial red, white, and blue banana seat bicycle with the tassels red, white, and blue and the Liberty Bell on the seat. I don't know if any of you all had a banana seat back in the day. I'm dating myself. Maybe the beard does it too. But bottom line is that those days are gone, man. Now when I see somebody walking around with a high trucker hat with the red, white, and blue flag on it, I cringe. I don't feel that pride that I once did. And I think a lot of it is that all the propaganda and all the childhood fantasies of the good old red, white, and blue and all the fight songs and the theme songs and the propaganda with the strong chins and everything else, it's played out, man. I can't unsee what I see now. And, you know, I think to myself, if we as a people don't finally get to a point where we take direct action outside of the electoral process and really start organizing, supporting these Amazon workers and supporting other strikers and really building our own power and saying enough's enough, nothing will fundamentally change. Quite frankly, it will get worse because you can't stay static. The carbon footprint of this planet and the way we're doing things it was already on a horrible, horrible trajectory. It's only going to get worse now because now you're going to have everybody panic drilling. You're going to have tons and tons and tons of panic work here trying to get caught up. And what gets lost? Renewables. What gets lost? Change. What gets lost? The future. We start trying to rebuild the past because that's what we know. That's what's safe. That's what we feel comfortable with. And I hate to say this, but the old red, white, and blue, I feel like I may as well be wearing a big flag on my head that says I'm a terrorist sometimes, you know, when I think about what we're doing. It's appalling to me. So,
and
that's where I'm at, Jordan.
I just want to throw in, because, you know, my wife needs encouragement. She said to me yesterday, I don't know if this has already been out there, but I'm just going to give her credit for it. She calls America an oligarchy.
That's it.
An oligarchy. So I want to give her credit because that, you know, that's a pretty good statement.
That's right on the money, man. That is a damn. I'm tell her I'm pocketing that one. I'm lifting
oligarchy,
seizing the means of saying oligarchy. I like that.
Real quick before we bring on our next guest, I mean, neither of us are, you know, obviously we can't predict the future, but I don't really see this ending anytime soon. I also, you know, we're hearing, oh, a no-fly zone. Now it's a partial no-fly zone. There's no such thing as a partial no-fly zone. You do anything in that airspace, Russian airspace, partial, full, a quarter, that's a declaration of war. And these maniacs like Joe Scarborough and these others, you know, call Putin's bluff. They've never seen a war they don't like. And by the way, I'm not for, and I don't think you are either, Russia invading Ukraine. I think two things can be true at once. Russia has legitimate grievances about NATO's eastward expansion. NATO promised Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union that they would not further expand past reunified Germany. Well, obviously, they've gone well past reunified Germany. That also doesn't condone invading a country and killing citizens of this and that. But to me, I don't know. I just see this dragging on, and I fear that Biden could fall prey to the neocons pushing a no-fly zone.
Wouldn't shock me a bit. Would not shock me a bit. So, I mean, whenever you want to get comfortable, just know there's another tragedy waiting to happen 5 minutes later, manufactured most likely, and definitely not in your best interest. So,
right. Yeah. And by the way, let's not forget, who was it? Was it Rahm Emanuel? Let's don't waste a good
crisis to waste.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Go to waste. That's it.
Yep. God knows what American corporate vultures are doing or where they're circling right now to rip you off more. But I got to tell you, and we're about to have our next guest on, I don't want to diminish what the Ukrainians are going through, but we're in America here. People have already been hurting before the coronavirus pandemic. People, you know, the media likes to pretend, oh yeah, everybody's, you know, for the most part recovered from the 2008 financial crash. Not so much. And then you had a pandemic where people are being evicted and gone into significant debt, lost their job. You know, we know everything that's happened. And now, in addition to higher rental prices, home prices, food prices, electrical prices, the list goes on. I mean, these gas prices are through the roof. And even if this ends, these fossil fuckers are just going to keep gouging until they can't anymore. So I worry about right here in America. I think we were already going to see kind of like a Republican tidal wave in November. This might make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, just think about this, right? I really hope folks do take a second to think about this. There is absolutely none of this that has to be this way. You know what I mean? Like, this is the direct result of ineffective government. It's a direct result of an ideological framework that is creating this space. We could literally offset this. But the other thing that's really important to understand, Milton Friedman in the 70s made everyone absolutely terrified of government intervention during OPEC. So what did they do? They jacked interest rates up into the 20%. Volcker destroyed the economy, and in order to save the economy, right? But that's the monetarist thinking. I'm sorry, these are terms maybe everybody doesn't use, but I want to be clear. This is the idea of using interest rate policy to save the economy. But the interest rates going up creates inflationary pressures. Okay. And so what ends up happening if wages don't go up too, you end up with the stagflation. Okay. And so I want you to be aware that we do have policy place, that we could do things. We could do things with the fiscal side, but we've been so conditioned that if we print money, and which we don't do, but we print money, then that it's going to equal inflation. And that is a bat signal. Imagine a big giant bat signal to every capitalist out there saying they're printing money. Okay, we could jack prices up, because that's what everybody thinks. The knuckleheads believe that when we print money, it's going to create inflation, but that's not how it works. So this right here is one of those things where it is a get out of jail free card for them to jack prices up. And there's nothing preventing that pen from writing the price down, because they're making record profits. One last thing, and that is this. Oil companies take about a year out. They plan their drilling cycle. So a lot of what was going to be drilled for this year was planned for last year based on certain metrics that they came up with. Next year's drilling plans, I'm sure, will be based on this year's, instances. And for the more agile out there, maybe they react a little bit to the current situation. But without a coherent energy policy coming from our federal government, there is nothing, not one damn thing, that will make them bring oil prices down or sell more domestic oil or anything else. There's nothing short of a legislative action.
Right. And I want to move on. Steve, stay with me. Starbucks, breaking news. Starbucks joins Coca-Cola and McDonald's in suspending operations in Russia after days of pressure. So I guess Starbucks is trying to distract from the war on workers right here in America. Great segue. Brian Murray, a Buffalo Starbucks worker.
That's right.
Who I've interviewed in person up in Buffalo. I covered your union effort, you and your co-workers with Starbucks Workers United in October, I think, as you were still organizing to win that union. You have become the first unionized Starbucks in America, and it is spread like lightning fire.
Yeah, we're up to 129 stores today, at least. So
wow.
At this current moment, who knows? I'm sure it's going to go up. But
so I wanted to have you on tomorrow. By the way, 3 additional stores in Buffalo have their vote for a union. So you could go now from 2 to
3 nationwide. We had the Mesa vote go through. That was I think our second set of stores, third set of single store that went, and it was the first one outside of Buffalo to actually win their union. So yeah, right. It's amazing. We're up to 3, and we could go up to 6 potentially tomorrow, depending on the outcome. So
that's the good news. The bad news is Starbucks, who claims to be a progressive company and has been very, said a lot of nice things about Black Lives Matter and other causes. They are now finding fakakta bullshit reasons to fire some of the organizers of your union in Buffalo. Can you kind of tell us what's going on?
Sure. I mean, this comes in conjunction with Starbucks cutting hours nationwide right now for workers. I have availability somewhere around 20 hours is what I would like to get a week. I'm currently getting 5 a week now. Some of my coworkers with full-time availability at my store and in stores around Buffalo and Ithaca, Boston, they have full-time availability. They're getting maybe 20, 25 hours. Workers across the country right now can't afford to pay rent. They're going so low on their hours that they're not qualifying for the benefits that Starbucks does give them. And right now we can only see this as a concerted effort to increase turnover and push union workers out. And along with that, if you try to get a second job, like Cassie Fletcher did at the Elmwood store, that was one of the first ones to unionize, and she drops her availability below 20 to meet the hours they're actually giving her, they fired her and said her availability doesn't work for the business. So this is kind of the catch-22 they're trying to put workers in right now across the country is, we're not going to give you enough hours, but if you want to drop your availability and try to find another job, we're going to push you out because that availability doesn't meet the needs of the business, allegedly. So,
well, let's call this what it is. They're trying to retaliate against the workers who won the union, and they're trying to chill and scare workers at the other locations. You said over 100 from voting yes. And by the way, Amazon in Staten Island, which I've covered extensively, their election is on March 25th. It's actually 5 days, March 25th through March 30th. And Amazon managers are telling workers in Staten Island, "Hey, if you vote yes on this union, we're going to have to cut your hours. We're going to have to cut your benefits. We might have to actually fire people because we can't afford it." The $1 trillion Amazon. So what we're seeing is workers are winning victories, and what Starbucks seems to be doing is trying to retaliate against those workers and scare the living hell out of workers who have not yet won from voting yes.
Yeah, and I think it's Kevin Johnson trying to also, jack up the price of, the stocks, right now trying to cut labor costs as much as possible to get a good first quarter out while, you have this wildfire labor movement spreading, and it serves, I think, a dual purpose for them. But Starbucks, I think if anything, this is only galvanizing people across the country. For workers on the fence, Starbucks is openly playing their hand now, showing that, all the values that they talked about, we're a human company, we care about our partners, you're an actual partner, all that goes away when they suddenly have nowhere cut hours so massively across the country, you can't even pay rent. Where's the compassion? Where's the company that doesn't need an intermediary, a so-called intermediary or a third party like the union to come in? Well, the fact is Starbucks at any time could act like this. There's nothing holding them to account. This only highlights why workers at Starbucks and across, the service industry and so many industries need a union, because ultimately, if you do something the company doesn't like, they're going to come after you, and there's no one protecting you because, it's your own company that's promising you all these things are doing it.
Right. And also to the workers that are now being fired for these bullshit pretext, you don't have enough availability, even though you do, or you got another job, even though you still have availability for Starbucks. Buffalo, like, the rest of the United Corporations of America, has been gentrified to a hell in a handbasket. It's not cheap. Rent has gone up. I was only there for about a week covering your election and other stories, but it's not cheap to live in Buffalo, New York anymore. So cutting hours for people like you and others, it's an urgent issue to you keeping a roof over your head.
Yeah, definitely. For so many workers, so many people at my store, and my store isn't one of the ones that's filed yet, but, workers are like looking for other jobs. They're crying. Workers are so upset. They're begging our manager, please give me hours. And the response that we're hearing from managers across Buffalo and across the nation is that, well, you should work harder to find hours at other stores. The onus is on you for not trying hard enough to pick up extra shifts at other stores, and that this is just what it is, and this is just going to be the policy for the foreseeable future. So I think it's Starbucks really, is coming down hard on workers. And like you said, the rent, like cost of living is so high across this country, especially in, metropolitan areas like Buffalo, that, we're barely making it as it is when we do get our availability and we do get the hours we request. But, when you take that away and even cut a third of those hours out, if not half or more, you're putting people's lives in danger, and their livelihoods in danger. So, yeah.
Feel free to chime in, Mr. Grumbine.
Well, yeah, I'm just thrilled to see young people, revitalizing labor in America, even if it's small drips, man. This is just really exciting stuff. But they do flex. They do show you once again where the power lies. And, I'm interested. I wonder what customers could do, what potential customers could do to support you guys. Do you guys have a message to people that might patronize Starbucks that are sympathetic to union causes, what we might be able to do to help you all out?
Yeah, of course. If there's a union, a Starbucks attempting to unionize in your area, please go there, get a union strong coffee, let them know, the community has their back. If you go to More Perfect Union's website, they have a map of every location. That's the most up to date I've seen across the country that's unionizing. We're not recommending people go into stores that don't have a campaign yet. The whole country is actively, organizing, and we don't want, Starbucks coming in preemptively if they feel like a campaign's, someone's attempting to start a campaign there. But going into stores that are unionizing, calling Starbucks corporate, contacting them in any way possible on social media and letting them know how disappointed you are as a customer and this behavior of the company. I think those are all really powerful things. And just standing with workers and getting that coffee tipping when you go in, being nice, knowing you're not alone. I mean, that's the biggest thing, because so much of the union busting is the psychological warfare and trying to create conflict in the workplace and, alienate workers in their own workplace and make them feel like they're alone. So, that solidarity, whether it's from the community or your coworkers, that's what keeps people going and wins campaigns.
And Brian, let me ask you, obviously we're talking about Buffalo here, but Starbucks is also, I believe it was in Arizona, they fired one of the lead organizers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she was going through cancer treatment.
Yeah, that was the manager, Brittany. That was the first store that we actually won. She basically was going through cancer treatment, was trying to take time off and still qualify for Starbucks' healthcare because she obviously needs it. She has cancer. And so basically when they launched that union campaign, basically in response to, her struggles and her being pushed out of the company, essentially, she had put in her, resignation. I think it was like a month, like she's going to leave in a month. Starbucks fired her that day, terminated her healthcare without, allowing her to basically offboard from Starbucks healthcare onto her next employers and, put her health at risk. So that was, what basically was the catalyst for the first store outside of Buffalo to unionize and win their election. I believe they won 25-3, which is our most resounding victory yet we've had. I mean, all the extra workers they brought into the store, because they've tried to pack stores across the country when they have an election coming up. Workers there were amazing. They onboarded them. They made them a part of that store community and just, dispelled a lot of the myths that, corporate, because they were training them outside the store, then bringing them in, basically trying to tell them how scary the union people are, how bad it is. But, I think Starbucks, the one thing that they do really well is they hire some great people, at that little like barista and shift level. And, the thing I think that's enabled us to have so many campaigns launching and be so strong is that, each store does have a really good culture because it's a difficult job. If you're not holding each other up day to day, it's hard to get through. So, I think we've been, using that to our advantage and using that to keep ourselves sane during this whole process.
Hey, let me ask you, who is actually supporting you guys in terms of guiding and structuring how you would build your union? I mean, are you all having advisors? Are you working with an existing union to help facilitate your unionization efforts? How's that playing out?
Yeah, so we're working with Workers United, which is an affiliate of the SEIU. They're its own, while it's affiliated, its own autonomous union. It's focused heavily on local autonomy and worker-led bargaining and organizing. So they're giving us resources, especially the legal ones, which is critical.
Yes.
I think with any of these union campaigns, going in and trying to go your own way is very difficult. We're paying, at least on some of the initial filings, the legal fees were up to $10,000, $20,000 to file for each election. And that's something that's incredibly difficult to do, if you're just a group of baristas. So I think, it is a credit to the labor movement. I mean, it's important to have these unions with resources that can put them towards workers. So they've been amazing. But we've had Richard Bensinger, who is former organizing director of the AFL-CIO. He's kind of been our mentor in Buffalo and trained us in how to organize. But, now mostly we pretty much almost exclusively we're having workers organize to other workers. So myself, other workers in Buffalo, Boston, Arizona, they have already gone through this process and seen kind of what Starbucks does. We're helping other people organize, and we're directly, helping to take point on these campaigns and help other people win their unions. So as much as possible, we're keeping this, organic and worker led.
And last question, Steve and I talk a lot about stuff outside electoral politics. I don't think it needs to be either or. Like I don't believe in like the absolutism as like, I'm done with electoral politics, never again. But I think we all probably agree there needs to be a lot more emphasis outside electoral politics. So for you, I don't think I'm blowing up your spot. You're a progressive guy. I think you were a burner. About the collective progressive despair out there. with a lot of things. Bernie, 2 campaigns didn't happen, rigged primaries. The squad not necessarily doing what everybody or fighting the way everybody wants them to do. But what would you say to the people watching about we can do things outside of electoral politics, even if viewers don't work at a Starbucks or an Amazon or one of these places unionizing? How could people get involved on their end to help these non-electoral strategies of workers coming together, local organizing, using leverage, which is what strikes are, union drives are? What would be your words to people who have become, rightfully so, Debbie Downers?
Yeah, I think, right now we're rife for, organizing, especially in this country, like you mentioned in the segment before, just the massive rise in inflation and the stagnation of wages that we're going through right now. I mean, we're still feeling the effects of the COVID pandemic and haven't recovered from that. And, what is potentially a recession that we're in right now or going into at some point, who knows? But yeah, I would say that like organizing, at least from my experience, has been one of the most empowering processes I've been through. I mean, because you're directly helping to build like democracy in this really small way, in a way that doesn't really exist, I think, in those high levels, outside of maybe you vote for a city councilor or something. And those are all very like one and done experiences, but when you're building a union, when you're building this kind of collective power, it's a constant collaborative process that you're engaging in. You're constantly like working with your coworkers and meeting people where they're at, and, but also pushing them towards something bigger in this kind of, grander goal. So I think, if it's organizing, if it's, and we're applying that same kind of like logic of organizing, coalition building, for local projects, whether it's around environmental concerns, workers' rights, supporting strike actions, or workers organizing. I think there's so much we can do because there's so much that needs to be done right now. So I think getting together and really focusing on, what goal do you have, what task do you have, and then kind of figuring out like the small steps to move towards it. I mean, that's what's helped us build our union, was setting these small tasks and then, moving towards that in a deliberate way. So I think there's so much to be done that people should take heart in, that, there isn't nothing we can do. There's everything we have to do right now.
And just a reminder to people, tomorrow, there's 3 more Starbucks in Buffalo that will hold union elections, which could bring the count in Buffalo up to 5.
5. Yep.
5.
Could bring up to 5.
And hey, you get more victories in Buffalo. It's just going to continue being a ripple effect. And let's not forget, folks, not to take your steam. If these Amazon workers in Staten Island, if they are successful, I'm not trying to pit Starbucks versus Amazon.
No, it's a major win for us if they win. It gives us momentum too.
But we're talking about a massive warehouse in Staten Island, the size of 15 football fields, well over 5,000 workers. If they could win, and by the way, I will be out there at the end of March in Staten Island covering that. If they could win, and to be clear, Amazon will try to rig that election. I have spoken with sources there. They are fully expecting Amazon to try and break the law to rig that election. But if Amazon workers could win in Staten Island, that would be a goddamn labor inferno.
Yeah.
And the ripple effect of that, just like we're seeing with Starbucks workers, over 100 now have filed for a union. The ripple effect of Amazon winning one election could have, I'm talking seismic effects, not just for the labor movement, but just for the working class. I cannot, Steve, I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Look, I talked to Sarah Nelson, and she's the big dog of the airlines, union. And she said ultimately that the way forward has got to be through unions, through building the labor movement. I believe that she is absolutely correct. You can see that rank and file people organizing on a daily basis outside the workplace is a super big challenge. I mean, just regular people being able to do that without some form of structure there to provide it. I think that kind of workplace organizing gives us a leg up. It gives us a real firm cornerstone to a movement building for a real honest to God labor-led, direct action. And hopefully big change could come from that. I think it's fantastic.
Right. Thank you, Brian. We'll keep in touch. Good luck tomorrow. And we'll have you back on.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. While that was going on, Steve, big super chat. Kelly Elaine, holy cow, $100.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Woo!
Thank you so much, Kelly Elaine. Really, really appreciate your support. We got another one from Das Bosch Fleisch. COVID, Cold War, corporations, corruption, so many bad news. My only hope is that the night might be the darkest just before dawn. Hey, there is some hope. We just showed you some hope. So don't get too dark. There is some hope. Steve, if you allow me to just plug something real quick.
Sure.
Reminder, Status Coup is funded only by you. We have plans to get back on the road, meaning me going back on the road. I'm also currently working on another investigative piece. Unlike a lot of our other friends, we leave the studio. It's very expensive to leave the studio. Flights, hotels, rent a car, food, equipment, and we're trying to grow outside of just on the ground. Like I said, Steve is going to be doing a weekly show for us. We're looking into using freelancers in different parts of the country. There's a lot of costs with an actual investigative and on-the-ground reporting unit, and we don't take a dime from the fossil fuckers. We don't take a dime for the big banks. We don't take a dime from big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military-industrial complex, or the oligarchs in the Democratic or Republican Party. So please consider signing up, statuscoup.com/join. We're going to be doing our monthly members call through Zoom, probably at the end of the month. Steve, I don't know if you know this, but I never had a bachelor party because my wedding was during the worst of COVID. So I'm actually having a belated bachelor party next weekend.
Ooh.
I won't say where, but I'm having a belated by 2 years bachelor party. So after that, we're going to have our monthly members call with the members. I hope maybe Steve could join too. That's through Zoom. We answer your questions, comments, concerns, share a little behind the scenes, what's going on. It's a lot of fun. Members also get other perks. We have a members Discord channel, and we do behind the scenes videos for members. So for $5 to $10 a month, you can become a member for $5 a month. You can become a member for $10 a month. We have other plans too. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. People are asking about my wife's bachelorette party. Hey, I don't plan her parties. If she's going to have a party, that's fine. She's, she has some thoughts about my bachelor party, but that's okay. So everybody sign up if you can. If you're not a member, I know for some people, even $5 a month isn't in your budget. So if you can't support us financially, keep smashing that like button, subscribe to this channel, click all notifications to this channel. But if you can support us, statuscoup.com/join. And real quick, there's one other thing, not to give you too much homework assignments. We have sent out an email to Status Coup members who had signed up as a Status Coup member before October of last year. Why that's important is in October of last year, we actually switched to an entirely different membership platform. Not to get too in the weeds, but our previous membership site was having a couple problems. Everybody's financial information was fine, but it was having issues with payments failing and things like that, just because of tech stuff that I don't want to bore you with. So we are trying to move people over from our old site if you signed up previous to October of last year. So if you signed up in 2018, 2019, 2020, or before October of last year, please go to statuscoupmember.com/member switch. And we will put it in the description right under here. statuscoupmember.com/member switch. We have a video there with directions how you switch. It's pretty simple and written out directions with images. So even for the tech challenged, you should be able to know how to switch. We've had about 150, 200 members switch so far. And the new membership site has a lot more perks too. So if you have signed up as a Status Coup member before October of last year, go to statuscoupmember.com/member switch. We will also put it in the description. And Colin, if you could come on real quick. If people say, Jordan, I don't really know which one I'm on, how do people know if they signed up to the old one and we need them to switch?
The easiest way, honestly, is just to try logging in and on our old site. And if you can't log in, but you can log into the new site, which is you can see there, statuscoupmember.com. Then that's the one you're on. But if you're just
So
go to
the old site, they could try to log in through statuscoup.com.
yeah, if you go to StatusCoup.com, and that's where you usually see your member perks, that means you're through our old member system. And you could just click statuscoup.com/join, and that'll all redirect to the new site, or just go to statuscoupmember.com /member switch, and it has all the details on how to switch and all that stuff, which in those details of how to switch, you might also realize which one you're on just by looking at some of those pictures.
Yeah, but we'll put this long link in the description. So definitely go to statuscoupmember.com/member switch. Please switch. You only have to do it this time. We're not asking anything more of you. And what it entails is basically canceling on the old site and re-signing up on the new site. By the way, shout out to new Status Coup members, Antoinette, and to new Status Coup member, Philip. So just got 2 new members. Now that we've done all the plugging for Status Coup, and if you're brand new and have never signed up, you go to statuscoup.com/join. Be like Antoinette. Be like Philip. Sign up today. Steve, let's plug your stuff. As a reminder, to be determined the date. Steve will be joining us on a weekly basis for his own show. I'm thinking something like a pun of grumpy, like Grumby something. But Steve will be joining us for his own show, hopefully soon. We're thinking Thursdays, so that will be awesome. But you're also doing a lot of great work at Real Progressive, so tell people where they could find you.
Yeah, so appreciate it, Jordan. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a show called The Rogue Scholar as opposed to The Rhodes Scholar. That's at noon Eastern time. And I sometimes have guests. Sometimes it's just Steve riffing on a deep idea. But ultimately it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. And I also am the host of a long-running 3-year podcast called Macro and Cheese that we release every single Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on any of your favorite podcast platforms. I strongly recommend, if you have a desire to learn and understand economics from a progressive perspective, check out Macro and Cheese. I have the experts on, and I do my dead level best to make sure they are the absolute best, most educational podcasts you'll ever hear. That's my goal anyway. So check it out. Thanks, Jordan.
Absolutely. And Steve and I are developing a bit of a bromance. So
yeah, a little bit.
I always enjoy doing this show with you, and I'm looking forward to you branching out for your own show here. So we'll have a more formal announcement about that soon. And, he's not a one-trick pony, so don't just expect MMT. He'll be doing some other stuff, economic, other stuff, focusing on activism and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. Reminder, join us. $5 a month. That is about the price of a burnt cup of Starbucks coffee. So join us, statuscoup.com/join. We have taken the hard way. We do not have any corporate funding. Our funding comes from you. And if we want to continue funding on the ground reporting, it is going to take the masses. There's a lot of people asking you for money. And what do they do with it? They give you bullshit hot takes every day and they never leave their studio. We're trying to do real journalism here. So support us, statuscoup.com/join. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again.